Today, we're diving into a book that people don't just read, they experience. It's one of those rare books that doesn't pat you on the back and tell you everything's going to be okay. It points right at your comfort zone, right at your excuses, and basically says, this is where your dreams go to die. The book is Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds, written by David Goggins. Now, if that name rings a bell, you already know what kind of energy we're talking about. If it doesn't, let me give you this. He's a former Navy SEAL, a world-class ultra-endurance athlete, and one of the toughest human beings walking the planet. But that's not what makes his story compelling. What makes Goggins special is where he started. He didn't come from greatness. He wasn't gifted. He wasn't born confident or successful. He came from a childhood filled with trauma, poverty, abuse, racism, fear, and he spent years in a state of depression and inertia. There's a moment in his life where he literally looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize the man staring back at him. And that's the moment, when his story begins. And here's why you should care. Because every single one of us has had that moment. That mirror moment. That "is this it?" moment. This book is about what happens next. Can't Hurt Me is a hybrid of autobiography and mental toughness training. Going through it feels like listening to someone confess every weakness they've ever had, and then explain exactly how they turned every one of those weaknesses into fuel. We follow Goggins' journey from a violent childhood where he watched his mother get abused, a school system that failed him, a kid dealing with racism and isolation, working a dead-end job spraying cockroaches, developing serious depression and obesity. He reaches a point where he weighs close to 300 pounds, stuck in a cycle of binge eating, TV, and avoidance. And then one day he sees a TV commercial for Navy SEALs, and something snaps inside him. Something small, just a spark. But that spark becomes everything. What follows is a transformation that sounds almost impossible. He loses over 100 pounds in 3 months. He enters SEAL training. He fails. He tries again. He breaks bones. He gets rolled back. He tries again and finally passes. Then, after becoming a SEAL, which is already beyond elite, he pushes further. He becomes an Army Ranger. He becomes an Air Force tactical air controller. And then, when most people would stop, he begins running races over 100 miles, sometimes on broken legs, sometimes after severe injuries, sometimes against doctors' orders. But here's the key. The book isn't about showing you how impressive he is. It's about showing you what a regular human being is capable of when they stop treating comfort like a requirement. Let's really dig into the core concepts, because this is where Can't Hurt Me becomes more than a memoir. 1. The 40% rule in depth. According to Goggins, when your mind is screaming, "I can't do anymore," you're usually at about 40% of your true capacity. Think about how wild that is. Most people spend their entire lives living on that 40% ceiling. 40% in their career, 40% in relationships, 40% in fitness, 40% in creativity, 40% in confidence. They never go past the discomfort zone, so they never see what they could have been. Goggins learned this by literally testing himself. When he was exhausted, he pushed anyway. When he was in pain, he kept going. And he noticed something. Once the mind accepts discomfort, the body follows. This is not a metaphor, it's a neurological response. We are biologically wired to conserve energy and avoid pain. That instinct keeps us alive, but it also limits us. The moment you realize that instinct is a suggestion, not a rule, you become dangerous. 2. Callousing the mind. This is one of the most important ideas in the book. Most of us do everything possible to avoid discomfort. We chase soft things, comfort food, comfortable routines, comfortable dreams, comfortable conversations. But Goggins says you have to choose discomfort on purpose. A callus is formed by repeated friction. The same thing happens to your mind. If you face uncomfortable situations consistently, tough workouts, difficult decisions, honest self-reflection, failure, you build mental calluses. That means fear doesn't surprise you anymore. Pain doesn't intimidate you. Failure doesn't break you. It becomes familiar. Not pleasant, familiar. And when something is familiar, you can handle it. 3. The accountability mirror. Every morning, Goggins would look in the mirror and tell himself the truth. Not encouragement, not affirmations. Truth. He would write post-it notes with his weaknesses and goals and stick them to the mirror. You're fat. You're lazy. You're not studying. You're lying to yourself. Why does this matter? Because change doesn't start with motivation. It starts with honesty. Until you're willing to confront your flaws, you can't fix them. 4. The cookie jar of achievements. This is brilliant. Goggins says every time you accomplish something, anything, you put it in your cookie jar of mental achievements. Then, when future challenges hit, you mentally reach into that jar and remind yourself, I've done hard things before. I can do this too. It's confidence built from experience, not hype. Let's talk about why people don't just read this book. They change their lifestyle after reading it. Raw vulnerability. Goggins shares traumatic, embarrassing episodes he could have easily hidden. He talks about failing multiple classes, being terrified of water, getting humiliated during training, childhood memories he wanted to bury. That honesty hits deep because it's not a highlight reel. It's a real human journey. He gives you challenges, not cliches. At the end of each chapter, there are exercises. Write your limiting beliefs. List your excuses. Track discomfort. Log accountability. You're not consuming inspiration. You're doing mental work. It applies to real life. You don't need to run 100 miles. You don't need to become a SEAL. You can wake up earlier. Stop quitting on day 3. Commit to one goal for 30 days. Stop lying to yourself about effort. This practical resilience. It changes your relationship with pain. Pain goes from being something to avoid to something you can use. That shift alone is life-changing. Let's pause. Just let these sink in. You are in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your true potential. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done. Take a breath, because those are not bumper sticker quotes. Those are wake-up alarms. Here's the question this book leaves you with. What would your life look like if you stopped quitting at 40%? Not 100%. Just past the instinct to stop early. Before comfort. Before excuses. Before the mind shuts everything down. That version of you exists. It's not far away. It's just uncomfortable. If this episode got you thinking, if you felt that little spark, that tiny voice saying, maybe I could do more, follow it. I put the Amazon link in the description. Grab Can't Hurt Me, read it and start applying one challenge today. Thank you for listening. Push your limits. Master your mind.